Hello everyone, welcome to Deepti's biology class. We have already covered nutrition and respiration. So let's start with transportation. Transportation in human is done by circulatory system. So transportation is also termed as circulation. Now this consists of three things in case of human, which are they? Blood vessels and heart. That means these three things together completes our circulation or transportation. Now, this is responsible for supply of oxygen, nutrients, removal of carbon dioxide and other excretory products. Now the question can be, what are the importance of transportation? Otherwise, why do we need a transportation system? If there is transportation system, it will help in the supply of oxygen, nutrients, removal of carbon dioxide and other excretory products. Now, so as we said that there are three components, right? Blood vessels and heart. So let us start with the blood. Now, this is a flow chart related to the components of the blood. So whatever I am telling, just you concentrate on this one and your own way you can make the flow chart in the simpler form, right? Now the whole blood in our body is divided into two parts. One is plasma, which forms a liquid or else we can say semi-liquid component, and the solid part of the blood we call it as formed elements. So our blood consists of a liquid part and a solid part. What is the liquid part is called plasma, and what is the this solid part is called, that is formed elements, right? This is the solid part and plasma is the liquid part of the blood, right? Now what this plasma is made up of? This plasma is made up of amino acids, nutrients, proteins, gases such as respiratory gas, there can be oxygen and carbon dioxide, right? Electrolytes and some of the nitrogenous waste. So what the plasma consists of? Amino acids are there, nutrients are there, proteins are there, gases, electrolytes and nitrogenous waste. Now which are the types of proteins present in our blood plasma? These are albumin, globulin and fibrinogen. Now what is this fibrinogen? You know, this is a protein which helps in the clotting of the blood, right? Whenever there is an injury, after some time blood clots. In such situation, this fibrinogen helps. Apart from fibrinogen, there can be globulin also, albumin also. These all are different types of proteins that present in our blood plasma. You no need to study about the functions of this entire thing. You should be able to make the components of blood point wise. From this entire flow chart, you should be able to make the points which consist of the components of blood. So we know the part which is liquid in form, which is around 50 to 55% of our blood, that is plasma. Now the remaining thing is termed as formed elements. You have to be very careful when you study this portion because it is important. Now what are formed elements? This is the solid part of the blood. Now what are these? Nothing but these are actually the blood cells. So in one more way you can remember, blood has two parts. One is plasma or else it can be solid particle, we can call it as blood cells. What are formed elements? These are nothing but blood cells. How many types of blood cells are there? Leukocytes. What is the meaning of leuko? That is colorless. Another name for leukocyte is that WBC. What WBC stands for? White blood cell. Now erythrocytes. Erythrocytes are the biological term for RBC. What is RBC? Red blood cells. Now what are platelets? These are also termed as thrombocytes. So these are platelets. So how many types of blood cells are there in our blood? WBC or leukocytes, RBC or erythrocytes, platelets or thrombocytes. So I'm just rubbing this area. You should remember this one, or else you have to note down somewhere, right? So what are the functions of these three cells? You should remember from these formed elements. Platelets, what is the another name I told? Thrombocytes. The function of the platelet is blood clotting. What is the meaning of blood clotting? Whenever there is an injury, blood start to flow from that injury, right? After some time what happened? Immediately there will be stoppage of blood flow. This is what we call blood clotting. That is done by these platelets. What is the another name? You know, right? Now erythrocytes, we know that this is also termed as RBC, right? Red blood cells. These red blood cells are red due to the presence of another substance, we call it as hemoglobin. So why blood is red in color? Due to the presence of a substance called hemoglobin. Now this hemoglobin has the ability to carry oxygen as well as carbon dioxide. Our blood transport oxygen. How? Blood consists of RBC. RBC is made up of hemoglobin. This hemoglobin has the ability to carry respiratory gases. So what is the main function of erythrocyte or RBC? To carry respiratory gases. How it carries? Oxygen towards the cell, carbon dioxide away from the cell. You got it? Right? Now, what are these WBCs? We will summarize once again this one, right? So, leukocytes are also termed as WBC. What is the function of these leukocytes? Leukocytes are nothing but they help in the immunity of our body. So these are also termed as immune cell. Whenever there is a microorganism or any unwanted things enters into your body, these leukocytes works and it destroy that particular foreign particle which enters in our body. Now these leukocytes are divided into two, granulocytes and agranulocytes. We know that WBC, that means white blood cell. This is also cell only, right? Suppose this is the WBC and there is a large nucleus or whatever. Suppose this is a nucleus. If the cytoplasm contains small dot-like structure, what do we call these dot-like structures? These are granules. If these granules are present, such cells we call it as granulocytes. If these WBCs which are having this nucleus and which lack granules, there is no granule, we call it as agranulocytes. That means no granule here. So how the WBC or leukocyte is classified? Based on the presence of this granules. If granules are present, we call them as granulocytes. If the granules are absent, we call it as agranulocytes. Right? Now, what are the types of granulocytes? Neutrophil, eosinophil and basophil. You might have heard about eosinophilia. Someone is allergic with a dust particle and keeps sneezing. Why do we sneeze? Actually, we are throwing out this unwanted material which has entered into our respiratory tract, right? In such a situation, this eosinophil work, right? So, you no need to worry about these neutrophil, eosinophil, basophil, or the agranulocytes are divided into lymphocytes and monocytes. So, you have to remember here one thing. Just I will tell you what you need to remember from this flow chart, this entire flow chart, what you have to remember. Whenever you listen the term any of this one from this circle, you have to remember that this one we are talking about WBC. So leukocytes, which are also termed as WBC, how many types? Two types, granulocytes and agranulocytes. What are granulocytes? In their cytoplasm, granules are present. If it is absent, then agranulocyte. Sometimes what happens, there can be match the following. Any one of this one will be in one side. On the other side, there will be RBC, WBC, platelets. You have to identify these all are types of these three plus these two are the types of WBC. Types of WBC or types of leukocyte. What was the another name of erythrocyte? RBC. What is the function? Carrying respiratory gases such as oxygen and carbon dioxide, right? Now, from this chart, what you have to be completely what you supposed to study, I'll tell you now. Blood is divided into two major components. Plasma you need to remember, formed elements you need to remember. Now among these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things are there, right? Out of these 6 things, at least 4 things you have to learn. Like plasma consists of amino acid, nutrients, proteins, gases, electrolytes or nitrogenous waste. That means which is written in this purple color. If you want, you can avoid, right? Now formed elements, these are actually what are formed elements? These are nothing but blood cells. You have to study about the blood cells, you cannot avoid that. So how many types of blood cells are there? Leukocytes, platelets and erythrocytes. Function of leukocyte is immunity, which will help us to fight with foreign particles or microorganism when it enters into our body. What is the function of platelet? Blood clotting. What is clotting meaning? To prevent flow of blood from the injury. If these platelets are not working, what will happen? There will be continuous bleeding and one can die due to loss of blood. What about erythrocytes? These are also termed as RBCs and the function is to carry respiratory gases, right? Now why these erythrocytes or RBCs are red in color? Because of the presence of hemoglobin. Actually hemoglobin on the RBC are helping in the transportation of the respiratory gas. Now related to this one question I will tell you. This question answer you have to learn. RBC, when the RBC cells, so I am talking about the RBC. This RBC cell, when it is born, there is a nucleus which is present. But as it get matured, there will not be any nucleus. The nucleus will be removed from the RBC. Listen the question carefully. When the RBC cell is formed, there is a well-defined nucleus. But as this cell grow or when the RBC get matured, what happens? This lose its nucleus. Now this is your homework. You have to find the answer. If you are not finding the answer, do let me know. I will tell you what is the answer. So what is the question? RBCs are having nucleus once it born, but as it grows, its nucleus get disappeared. What is the reason behind this one? Now among these 3 types of blood cells, let's see the lifespan. Leukocytes lives around 2 weeks. Maybe in some book you may see some variation. There they are specifically talking about any of the type of the leukocytes or WBC. So majority of them, how much time it will live? Around 2 weeks. What about platelets? Platelets lives less than 1 week. Majority of the time it is around 5 days, right? And erythrocytes or RBC, the lifespan is 120 days. After every 120 days, it will get destroyed. A new one keep forming and the old one will be replaced. So you have to study about the function of platelet, leukocyte and erythrocyte. Another name also you have to learn. Lifespan also you have to learn. Understood? Now, just related to this one, a small thing more I would like to tell you now. Suppose if this is your blood. This blood has something we call it as plasma. We have studied now, right? Blood plasma. Blood plasma is a background on which all these formed elements are floating. Just you think about a situation. In front of you there is a bathtub or a bucket full of water, right? This water is similar to the plasma. Now you are taking a piece of paper and you are tearing it. You tear the paper and you are just putting in that full bucket of water. So what can you see? The water moves. As along the water moves it, these paper pieces are moving, right? Same way, On this plasma, these formed elements are present. So plasma is the liquid part. On this liquid part, all these blood cells which are moving. When the plasma moves, what happens? Blood cells are also moving. Why can't we see all these cells? Because of the more number of RBCs which are present in our blood. Since RBCs are red in color, we see the entire blood as red in color. We are not able to see the plasma color and all. But if you want to know the color of the plasma, it is pale yellow in color. Since red is a dominant color, we are not able to see that. So what you have to remember, just like a bucket of water, imagine that there is a bucket of water which is slowly showing some kind of movement, and you are tearing a paper and you are just throwing in that water. So what happens? These paper pieces will float on this water. Same thing happens in our blood. That water is similar to the plasma, and the paper pieces are similar to these formed elements. Which are the formed elements? Leukocytes, platelets, and erythrocytes. So this is what the first component, that is blood. Now the second part of the transportation is blood vessel. So there are three types of blood vessels we have: artery, veins, and capillaries. So please remember these three terms: arteries, veins, and capillaries. Now capillaries are the smallest types of blood vessels. This you have to remember. This is totally different from these two. Why I am telling this way is that, what is the character of artery? In case of vein, majority of the cases it can be an opposite character, right? So if something is thin in this side, it will be thick. If it is narrow here, it will be wide. Here if it is low, it will be high. Here it is no, then it will be yes. That's why first you have to learn to differentiate between arteries and veins. I'll just draw the diagram of artery and vein, then you will be able to understand. Suppose this, see, there is nothing much to draw this way. One diagram I am making here, you can see here, right? And another one I am making this way. Are you able to see some difference in these two? This is actually the artery and this one is the vein. Now let's see what is the difference between artery and vein. So you have to be careful in this function. These points got exchanged due to printing mistake or just typing mistake. Arteries actually transport blood away from the heart. That means the blood will go away from the heart. That's why arrow is made in this way. Now what about this veins? Vein transport blood towards the heart. That means it carry blood towards the heart. Please remember, this is actually a printing or typing error. This is the point of vein and this is the point of artery. What about the wall? The wall of the artery is muscular and elastic, which is thick. If you see here, you can see that this is thick walled. And what about veins? Veins are having very thin wall. Now what about lumen? Lumen is actually the space which is available in a vessel for the blood to flow through. This case, so this is the lumen. So where is lumen is wide? Lumen is wide in case of vein, and in case of artery it is narrow. That means the space which is available is less. What about the pressure? Suppose you imagine that same amount of blood has to pass through this artery which has less space and the vein which has more space within that. What is the space? Lumen, right? So where will be pressure? When there is less space, there will be high pressure. So blood flows under high pressure through artery, but in case of veins it is low pressure. So what about valves? Valves are, where are the valves? Valves are absent in case of artery and present in case of veins. So what are these valves? Suppose this is one of the blood vessel and blood is flowing in this direction. Now when the blood comes in between, what happens? There are these type of door like structures are there. These door like structures. When the blood comes, immediately these door like structures open for a moment, and once the blood passes, what happens? These doors are immediately closed. What is the need of these valve? These valve prevent backward flow of the blood, so that blood will flow only in one direction. Where is such valves are present? These valves are present in case of veins. So let's quickly see what are these points. So remember with this first point, that is function. What is the function of artery? Artery's function is to transport blood away from the heart. That's why this diagram, there is a heart and the arrow is going somewhere else. So it is going away from the heart. What about veins? Veins carry blood towards the heart. So you can see there is a heart sign and arrow is coming. Arrow means the blood is actually coming towards the heart. What about this wall? Wall is thick and thin in case of vein. What about the space inside? Narrow in case of artery, wider in case of vein. Pressure, due to less space inside, high pressure will be there in artery, low pressure will be there in vein. What about valve? Valve is absent in case of artery, which is present in case of vein. So if you are not talking about exceptions, one more thing we can say, artery carry pure blood except one type that we will discuss later. What about veins? Vein always carry impure blood. What is the meaning of this pure and impure blood? The blood which contain oxygen, we call it as pure blood, which is also termed as oxygenated blood. The blood which contain carbon dioxide as a major component, we call it as impure blood or deoxygenated blood. Now, what is the meaning of these capillaries? These are the smallest blood vessels. See, when you look at your hand, you can see the main blood vessels, right? But still some part of your body like your fingertips and all, you cannot see any blood vessels. But if there is an injury, still blood comes, right? Because of the presence of this capillary. Just you remember this diagram. Suppose this is one of the cell, right? There is a blood vessel which carry pure blood towards the cell. The pure blood will be carried towards this cell. Now this pure blood need to be supplied to the cell. For that, this blood vessel is going to be divided into small set of blood vessel and later that will unite and form another set of blood vessel. Till now what happened? There is a cell. Towards the cell, one blood vessel which carry the blood, right? That blood is given to the cell. From the cell, so why this blood is pure? Because the blood is carrying oxygen. Now this oxygen is given to the cell. From the cell, what it will take back? That is what we call carbon dioxide. And this set of blood vessel which is connected, this much area which is connected to the cell, we call it as capillaries. Now what are capillaries? These are small set of vessels which are connected to the cell. So where what happens? Exchange of the material takes place. I will tell you immediately how you are going to draw capillaries. Just you make a vessel this way and this way, just you show some bulging and this way you can show, right? And just you make this smiley like structures. What this structure indicate, you know? This vessel got divided into smaller part, and to this smaller part what happens? Here is a cell. Just you imagine this way. Now what happens here is that the blood which brings oxygen, right? Which vessel it is? Pure blood. I have told that artery carry pure blood. Why artery carry pure blood? Because the blood is rich with oxygen. So this can be an artery, right? Because artery is carrying the pure blood. When it comes here, there are set of capillaries here, right? This structure we call it as capillaries, right? Now this oxygen is given to the cell. From the cell what happens? In return it takes carbon dioxide. Now what this blood contain? This blood contain carbon dioxide. So which vessel carry impure blood? This is going to be a vein. So can we say that capillary connects artery and vein? Yes. So arteries and veins are connected by small set of blood vessels. We call it as capillaries. Can you see this sentence? It connects arteries to veins, or arteries and veins are connected by this one. So what will be there? Near to the capillaries, of course, there will be a cell. Why these small branches are made? See, this larger one cannot directly enter into the cell, right? To fulfill the supply of sufficient material between the cell and blood, these blood vessels are branched out to form small set of vessels. We call it as capillaries. Now one more term I am teaching you here. If you can remember, well and good. Otherwise, no problem. See, the small branch of artery, we call it as arteriole. Now, what is this? Okay, are you getting this point? Or else simply you can say the capillary which is connected to the artery, we call it as arteriole. Now, the small branch of vein, we call it as venule. So remember these two terms, venule and arteriole. Now how can we connect this one? Have I told here, arteries to vein there is connection. That small capillary of artery, we call it as arteriole, and the small capillary of vein, we call it as venule. So what are these capillaries? These are nothing but these, either we can say these connect artery and vein, or else the smallest branch of arteries and veins are termed as capillaries. How many types of capillaries are there? Two are there. One is arteriole and another one is venule. If you feel it difficulty, this arteriole and venule, you can avoid, no problem. Just for the sake of you to avoid confusion, if you read from some other book, that's why I told this one. So what are these capillaries? Capillaries are the smallest vessels which connect arteries to the vein. What is the size of the wall? It is one cell thin. How much small one cell wall has, or the cell how much thickness it has, that much only its wall is also having, right? Cell membrane how much thin it is, you have studied, right? Now what is the size of this one? The size of this one is up to how much an RBC can pass. RBC is so small cells, how much an RBC can pass through, that much smallest vessel gap will be there in this capillary. See, if artery is this much, vein is this much, right? Artery or vein this much is there, our capillaries are going to be too thin. Not, I am actually using my finger, not a pen, that's why I am making this broad one. It becomes, handwriting problem is also coming because of that. Now what about the pressure? Pressure is going to be low there. What about the valve? The valve is absent. Now I see, since the space is less, why there is low pressure? The supply of the blood is also very less, and the wall is also thin, that's why there is no pressure. So hope you have understood. So what type of blood capillary carry? It can carry both impure and pure form of blood. Artery carries pure blood, veins carry impure blood, capillary can carry both pure as well as impure blood. Hope you have understood this lesson. We have completed the first two major parts of this transportation, that is blood and blood vessels. Next lesson we will start with the structure of human heart. Thank you so much.